today's video, we're going to be talking about the best places to find used physical media. Some places are better than others, but which ones are the best? Hey guys, welcome back to Rebel Reserve, where we talk about all things related to movies and physical media. If you love movies, or if you are a collector of physical media, like this video and subscribe to see all my upcoming content. And before we get started, put down in the comments, what's the best deal that you've ever found on a movie or a piece of physical media, and where did you find it? So I've jotted down a few places that I like to frequent in order to find good deals on cheap physical media. So movies, including Blu-rays, DVD, VHS tapes. You can also find CDs, vinyl, etc. at these places as well. So the places that we're going to be talking about in this video are thrift shops, antique malls, pawn shops, as well as social media apps such as Facebook Marketplace, Whatnot, and eBay. I'm also going to order these places in terms of how often I go there. So the places that I like to go more often and I think are the better places to try to target are going to be higher on the list. The places down at the bottom are going to be ones that I don't really use as much. So the first place that I like to go in order to try to find used physical media, DVDs, Blu-rays, CDs, vinyl, etc. is going to be thrift stores. What I like to do is go into my local Goodwill at least once a week, if not multiple times throughout the week. The reason why I do this is because they restock the shelves of physical media on no specific cadence, so whenever they have room, they're going to put new movies in. I feel like there are other collectors in my area that I'm competing against because I tend to go in and the shelves have been absolutely wiped out. So once or twice a week, I go through Goodwill in my area to see if they have anything new. It's possible that you might have multiple thrift store chains within your area, so try to stop at these places as often as you can because you honestly never know what you're going to find, and $1 or $2 per movie is always going to be a great deal. With thrift store chains such as Goodwill moving more into an online marketplace, a lot of the times when they have an item that has a certain value, they're going to place it online and they're going to do a live auction for it. Physical media such as Blu-rays, DVDs, VHS, vinyl haven't really hit that level yet, so you're still able, from my experience, to find good deals. So as an example of a good deal that I found at my local Goodwill is this sealed VHS copy of Magnum Force starring Clint Eastwood. I paid, I think, 50 cents for this copy. I left it sealed even though I'm not that type of collector, but it's still cool to have found this at a local thrift store. One caveat that I want to mention before I get too far into this is that with any of these locations, you're going to want to make sure that you open up the discs to check and make sure, one, that there's a disc in the case that you're looking at, two, that the correct disc is in there. And of course, you're also going to want to check to make sure that the disc is in playable condition. The same thing goes for VHS tapes. Of course, you're going to have to make sure you check those for mold as well. I have seen on Reddit where some people have said that their local thrift stores didn't allow them to open up the cases in order to check out the movies or the VHS tapes. If that's the case, I'd honestly just go somewhere else. Overall, thrift shops such as Goodwill are places that I've been the most successful at, and I think it's just because they're always getting in new stuff and they get such a high volume of donations. They often have large bins or totes of movies dropped off on a regular basis, so there's pretty much always something new coming in. The next place on the list is going to be antique malls. From my experience, a lot of them have gravitated towards more crafty things that people are trying to sell, or what as I like to call junk. Nevertheless, there are still opportunities to find good deals on movies from certain vendors. And these places don't have quite the volume of movies typically that you would see at like a thrift store, but when you do find movies, I've typically always found something that I was interested in. So for example, I've got here the 4K steelbook of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I picked this up at a local antique mall for, I believe, $2, which for a 4K steelbook is almost unheard of. And it actually has the poster still in it, both discs completely intact, and it's also in great shape. There's actually an antique mall about 20 minutes away from me that I tend to frequent. I think the first time I ever went in there, I absolutely cleared them out. I think I got somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 movies all in one trip. They're typically $1 to $2 a piece, which is always a great deal, especially if you've got a movie that you've been looking for, or if you just happen to see something and you wanted to give it a try, you're not out very much. One good tip if you're going to be looking for physical media in antique malls is to try to ask someone that's working there. They're in there all day, so they have a good idea of where things are at. So if there's a particular spot where movies can be found, they would probably know. Next on the list is the first online platform, and that platform is Whatnot. I first heard about Whatnot on TikTok about 2 years ago. I was in somebody's stream and I asked them where they picked up the bulk of their movies, and that's when they mentioned Whatnot. Of course, I went straight to the App Store and downloaded the Whatnot app. I was honestly surprised at the amount of sellers that had physical media, not only DVDs and Blu-rays, VHS. I saw Laserdisc, Betamax, you name it, they're selling it on Whatnot. So if you're not familiar with Whatnot, it's a live auction site similar to TikTok where you have people who are selling different things. The bidding is going to be happening live and it's live transactions. So as they're showing things such as movies, people are bidding on them and you're winning it right then and there. You also have other sellers that like to do stacks, so they let you scan through the movies that they have and you basically create a bundle. Whenever you're ready to check out, you just let them know and you run it all as one transaction. And while you'll find a lot of boutique or hard to find out of print movies on Whatnot, it's still a great place to find cheap deals. I know of several sellers that sell Blu-rays, DVDs, VHS tapes for $1 or $2 a piece, and every time I've asked to work out some type of deal, given the volume of movies that I was purchasing, they always helped me out and looked out for me on price. The one thing that you have to look out for on Whatnot are the guys that have extremely deep pockets. So there are a few people on Whatnot who are notorious for going into streams for movies and spending upwards of $1,000. These people tend to take the fun out of it because a movie that you want to pick up for $3 or $4, now it's going for $25 or $30 just because they have the ability to outbid everyone. That doesn't happen often, but I have seen it happen multiple times over the course of the 2 years or so that I've been using the app. I'm not going to mention any specific sellers on this because they do it. They're not giving me any free movies. And I would show you a couple of examples of movies that I found on good deals on Whatnot, but honestly, I have so many. Actually, right here. All right, so here's a good example at arm's reach. I had the Scream Factory 4K Blu-ray of the original Halloween, and this was actually sealed whenever I got it. I was just so excited to have it on 4K that I had to open it and give it a watch. The seller that this came from is a big collector and tends to part ways with things for the right price. So he had Halloween 1 and Halloween 2. If you're not aware, this is out of print and doesn't seem to be coming back in print anytime in the future. So he had 1 and 2. I think he wanted $40 each, which of course I took that deal. I did see comps for this going for $85 to $90 at the time, so I think that's an excellent deal. I'll just show the cover just for fun. There you go. And for the fun of it, I actually decided to go ahead and just grab the Halloween 2. So this is the same release from Scream Factory, just the second movie. I did leave this one sealed because I'm not so hot and heavy to watch it, and part of me doesn't want to absolutely tarnish the value of both of these, so this one's going to remain sealed for the time being. A good strategy that I like to use whenever I'm shopping on Whatnot is to stay away from the sellers that have too many people in the live streams. With so many people in the streams, it's going to be easy for movies to get bid up out of your price range or to a point to where you just don't want it for that price. So what I like to do is to go into the live streams that have less people. A lot of times you'll find people that have stacks and stacks and stacks of movies in their inventory, and all you have to do is ask. So if there's a particular movie that I'm looking for that I haven't been able to find yet, I'll go into a live stream that might have 10, 12 people in it and ask them if they have a copy of that movie. 50% of the time they have the movie that I'm asking for, they just have to go find it. And without all the competition bidding up the movies, I've been able to get some pretty good deals using that strategy. So next up on the list is going to be eBay. There are very few times where you're going to want a movie, whether it be VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, etc., Laserdisc even, to where you can't find a listing for it on eBay. A movie is going to have to be very hard to find for you not to find multiple listings for it on eBay. Of course, that varies depending on the rarity and the value of things, but generally that's what I've noticed. With that said, eBay tends to be one of the most expensive places that you can go in order to find movies, but hey, sometimes you just gotta have a copy of something. I tend to use eBay as the last resort, so if I've looked for something for so long on Whatnot and in thrift shops and I haven't been able to find it, I'll typically go to eBay and look for it there. So a good example of this is this Classic Monsters collection on Blu-ray from Universal. I looked for this on Whatnot a couple of times and just wasn't able to find it. I decided to just quickly look on eBay. I found this for a pretty good deal. I think the seller had it listed around $50 and we met somewhere in the middle around $30 or $35. Like I said, this is one that I was looking for and I wasn't able to find, so I'm happy to have this in the collection. So last on the list for places in order to find cheap used physical media is going to be pawn shops. Pawn shops can be very hit or miss depending on your location, but I have been able to find a couple of good deals at them. So one example is a Sony 4K Ultra High Definition Blu-ray player. I've been on the hunt for one of these for a while, but I hadn't found one on sale yet in order to pick it up. I was able to find one at a local pawn shop on sale for around $50. This is a Blu-ray player that typically retails for around $180. It was actually still sealed in the box. I have been able to find some pretty good deals at various pawn shops around my area, but I don't feel like digging any of those out. Depending on your area, you could have 5 or 6 different pawn shops within a few minutes of each other. These types of businesses tend to cluster close together, so normally if you find one, often find 2 or 3. Again, you're going to want to make sure that you're checking the discs to make sure that they're in the proper cases and also that they are still playable. Sometimes places such as pawn shops don't do a very good job of vetting the inventory whenever it's coming in, and they're oftentimes buying just a large lot of movies for pennies on the dollar. So it's always good to kind of double check, or else you're going to end up with a bunch of unusable junk. I put pawn shops at the bottom of this list specifically because I haven't had that much success at the pawn shops in my area, but who knows, your area could be a lot different. So those are the places that I use in order to find my physical media at awesome deals. If you know of any places that I forgot to mention in this video, leave those down in the comments below. If you made it to this point in the video, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.